Hampton specialises in taking stories from history or literature and mining them for psychological twists and ethical dilemmas. In 1985, he refashioned an 18th century French novel, Les Liaisons Dangereuses, a chilling account of the corruption of a young innocent by a pair of decadent French aristocrats.
I had this wonderful agent called Margaret Ramsey, Peggy Ramsey, and I had said to her sometime in the 70s, I think Les Liaisons Dangereuses would make a very good play. And I did suggest it to some people, but nobody really wanted it. I suggested it at one point to the National, and they said, no, it's all letters. The characters never meet. No. And it was finally, I had an open commission from the Royal Shakespeare Company, and wrote the play and handed it in. And this miraculous cast arrived. I wanted Alan Rickman because I'd seen him in other things. Howard Davis wanted Lindsay Duncan, and we both wanted Juliet Stevenson. But it was still the last production of the year, thought to be, an adaptation of a fairly obscure French novel. It was scheduled, I think, for 23 performances. And suddenly it went through the roof.
I can see I'm going to have to tell you everything.
Of course you are.
Yeah. Well, my trip to the country to visit my more or less immortal aunt, the fact of the matter is, it's the first step towards the most ambitious plan I've ever undertaken.
Well, go on.
See, my aunt is not on her own at the moment. She has a young friend staying with her. Madame de Tourvel.
Yes.
She is my plan.
You can't be serious.
Why not? To seduce a woman famous for her strict morals, religious fervor, and the happiness of her marriage, what could possibly be more prestigious?
I think there's something very degrading about having a husband for a rival. It's humiliating if you fail, and commonplace if you succeed. Where is he, anyway?
He's presiding over some labyrinthine case in Burgundy, which I'm reliably informed will drag on for months.
I can't believe this. Apart from anything else, she's such a front. Bodice up to her ears in case you might catch a glimpse of a square inch of flesh.
You're right. Clothes don't suit her.
How old is she?
22.
And she's been married?
2 years.
Even if you succeed, you know what?
What?
All you get from her is what she gives her husband. I don't think you can hope for any actual pleasure. They never let themselves go, those people. If you ever make her heart beat faster, it won't be love, it'll be fear. I sometimes wonder about you, Vicomte. How could you make such a fool of yourself over a complete non-entity?
Take care now. You're speaking of the woman now.
Yes?
I've set my heart on.
Why was it so successful?
Well, I think it arrived in the middle of the 80s at a time when sort of institutionalized selfishness was much encouraged in society. That thing that the person who was encouraging it didn't believe existed. And therefore, it sort of struck a chord. It was about these two people who were entirely self-indulgent, who didn't care anything about anybody else, who walked on people's faces in order to indulge themselves. And that was somehow the mood of the day. And it did a curious thing, the play, which I don't know that I was aware of when I was writing it, which was that it seduced the audience in the first half until they really liked these people. And then it made the audience feel bad for having been seduced. So it slightly operated on the audience in the way that the characters operated on each other.
Your honesty, or otherwise, is not at issue. The point is, surely, that I was weak enough to be persuaded to grant you a favor you should never have obtained. And furthermore, I did so under certain conditions, not a single one of which you have observed. Naturally, I feel you've exploited my good faith.
What can I say to reassure you? How can you be afraid of me when, because I love you, your happiness is far more important than my own? You've made me a better person. You mustn't now undo your handiwork.
I must ask whether you're going to leave the room or let me pass.
But why?
Because I find this conversation distressing. I can't seem to make you understand what I mean, and I've no wish to hear what you invariably get round to say.
Very well. I leave you in possession of the field.
Monsieur.
What?
Nothing.
The play's combination of sex, seduction, and a lavish historical setting proved irresistible to Hollywood. And in 1988, Les Liaisons Dangereuses was made into a hugely successful film, which won Hampton an Oscar.